Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you have used Microsoft Foundry, you know that you have three ways to create agents. You have prompt agents, you have workflows, and lately you have also hosted agents. In the portal, they look pretty much the same, but they are not. And here's the thing, picking the wrong one is the kind of thing that you don't notice until months later. Let's say, for example, that you build your whole agent on the fully managed path, and then you hit a wall where you need a custom orchestration that the platform basically won't give you, or you went the other direction and now you're paying for containers running to do something that a no-code agent could handle it in an afternoon or less. So today, let's clear this up. I'm going to walk you through all three, what each one really is, and what it costs you in terms of effort and flexibility. And one quick thing that I'd flag as we go is that only one of these three options is production ready. The other two are still in public preview. Let's get into it. Before we split them apart, these three options, let's see what they have in common. Remember, we are talking about prompt agents, workflows, and hosted agents. In Foundry and in all platforms that host agents, every agent is three things that are stacked together. A model, in this case from a Foundry model catalog, which basically is the reasoning engine. Then we have the instructions, your goals, constraints, or behaviors, and tools, how the agent reaches data or takes action, file search, code interpreter, web search, MCP servers, and custom functions that we can define in our code. That's it. We have model, we have instructions, and we have tools. An agent reasons across multiple steps and calls tools. These three options that we see here runs on the Foundry agent services. We have runtime, life cycles, and the tools, memories, and identity of the agent. But what is important here is that every agent type in Foundry reaches models and tools through the same response API that we see here. This is the same protocol, it's a shared protocol across all these three options. And here's why that matters. None of these three options, prompt agents, workflow, and hosted agents, gets a better model or tools the others can't touch. The raw materials that we see, the model inferences and the platform tools, are identical across all these three options. So that is not where they differ. What differs is the layer that you build on top. How you author the agent, who owns the orchestration, and how much Foundry manages versus how much you control. That layer is what gives each type its distinct strengths and weaknesses. Let's walk each of them. I want to start with prompt agents because this one is the one that has more time in the platform and is the only one of the three that is generally available at the time I'm recording this video. So prompt agents are GA, are production ready today. A prompt agent is declarative defined. In this case, we give a model, we give the instructions, we give tools, and also natural language prompts that drive the behavior of this agent. That is the whole thing. There's no application code, no container, no compute for you to manage. It's basically, think about it like a logic app where you just drag and drop stuff. You don't have to maintain anything. Everything is handled by the platform. There is two ways to build it. Using the portal UI, where you create it in the Foundry portal, you test it in the playground, and you can call it from your application. Or you can use the SDK version. You can have Python, where you have the agent that goes into version control. You can code review and do automatic rollouts. It is the same agent if you build it from the portal or from SDK, and Foundry runs it for you either way. So as you can see, there is no container, no compute, no code that you need to maintain or compute to pay for. Foundry owns the runtime. What teams are building with this type of agents, it's internal support or knowledge assistance is, I think, the classic one. Maybe an agent that is grounded on your company's docs, policy, or product data that answers employee questions or customer questions. When do you need this type of agent? If you are only getting started, if it is an internal tool, if maybe it's a production agent that doesn't need a custom orchestration, or if you basically want to manage runtime and you don't want to worry about the infrastructure, go for it. If you don't have a specific reason to pick one of the other two, then this is your default. Most agents should start here. Now let's talk about workflows. A workflow is an entire kind of agent. It's an orchestration layer that sits on top of agents and coordinates them. Prone and hosted are agents that we run on Microsoft Foundry, and a workflow is how we change those agents together into a repeatable process. That is why this doesn't belong on the saying how much do I control the runtime, right? Because this is doing a different job. A workflow is a UI based visual builder like this one that you see. It's like a logic app. You are not writing a prompt, you are drawing a flowchart where you have the trigger, you have different type of nodes, conditional, you can ask for user input, and this is used when a single agent isn't enough and you need to sequence actions or coordinate multiple agents. And as I mentioned, these workflows are built out of nodes. We have different nodes such as agent nodes, data transform, logical, conditional, or user input. A common workflow would be like a trigger. We have the parsing of data, then we can have an agent to do the classification. We have a conditional, we can ask for user confirmation, and then we can invoke other node agent. The interesting part here is that this runs on PowerFX, which is the same language from Power Platform. If you have never touched Power Platform, that is a new language that living inside your AI stack. And I think it's worth knowing before you make this effort. Something also to notice that it is not pure ClickUps here. There is also a YAML view where you can see all the definition of the steps of the node types. And you can edit the YAML in the editor that is built in Microsoft Foundry. I mentioned that we have agent nodes in workflows, but these agent nodes are not host agents. Hosting agents can run in the workflow designer. Workflows can orchestrate only from agents. If you want to coordinate hosted agents, you need to build your own orchestrator from your own code. What teams are building with this is, let's say that you have an approval and exception flows. I think this is the perfect use case where there is an agent that drafts or access something, the flow branches until the result, and a human needs to sign off so that the flow can continue. This is a perfect use case. You may need to use this if you need to orchestrate multiple prompt agents into a repeatable process. Remember, we cannot orchestrate hosted agents. If you want branching and variable without writing orchestration code, and if you need human in the loop steps like approvals that are back in this flow. You want to skip this one if you are shipping to production and preview is a blocker for you, or you have a policy where you cannot use because this is still in public preview, or if you need to orchestrate hosted agents because this is not supported. The third option is where you have maximum control. It's called hosted agents, and hosted agents are also in preview at the time I'm recording this video. Hosted agents, it's your own code packaged as a container image. You pick the framework. It can be Microsoft Agent Framework or LangGraph or the OpenAI SDK, and you can ship it as a container image to a container registry where Foundry pulls that image and runs it. And here's what you get when you deploy that image into Foundry. It pulls the image from the container registry and provisions a compute, assigns the agent its own dedicated identity, and exposes a dedicated endpoint where you can call it. Your own code still calls responses API protocol that I mentioned before that is shared across this type of agents, but the orchestration logic is defined in your own code. The runtime model for this type of agents is quite interesting because hosted agents runs in per session and they run in a VM isolated sandbox. So each session that you create has its own sandbox with its persistent file system. Those sandboxes can scale to 0 when there is no work and restore your state when the session resumes. Hosted agents can expose more protocols such as responses, invocations, WebSockets, activity, and also A2A for agent-to-agent communication. And there is a few constraints that it's worth saying that maybe you can add tools directly to a hosted agent's definition. You have to connect them through the MCP endpoint, and also the Azure Container Registry needs to be reachable over its public endpoint because the private network isn't supported yet. A popular use case for this type of agent is described in the Microsoft documentation, and it's Twilio that runs on hosted agents. They deploy their own Agent Connect product straight to Foundry's serverless frontend and let Foundry handle the hosting. So that's basically the textbook use case for this type of agent where you have your own code and framework, and it will run on the infrastructure that you didn't have to build, which is Microsoft Foundry. Use this type of agent when you need your own code or a specific framework. You need custom protocols such as webhooks or A2A protocols, or you need control compute such as CPU and memory for your sandbox, or if you want to run stateful workloads, because this type of agent supports that due to the sandbox that it creates with the persistent file system. So here's the whole thing that we saw in this video. There is 3 ways to build an agent. Prompt, which is declarative, fully managed. It's GA, which means it is production ready today. And it's your default if you're just getting started. We have workflows, which isn't a new type of agent. It's a visual layer where we can orchestrate those agents from agents. And it's still also in preview. Something particular about workflows is that they run on PowerFX and it can drive hosted agents. And finally, hosted agents where you have your own containerized code with maximum control. It's also in preview, and you have per session sandbox. 2 of the 3 looks like peers in the portal, but they aren't. A workflow orchestrate prompt agents rather than being one. And 2 of the 3 that we saw are still in preview at the time I'm recording this video. If this helped you, tell me in the comments which of the 3 are you actually using, what are the use cases that you have for each of the options that I described. And if you like this video, subscribe for more content like this. Bye bye.